Hello, and welcome to another episode of Reviews in a Rabbit Onesie, the show in which I, Dan Leith, review things in a rabbit onesie. Hello, and welcome to part 3 of Dantober, where I'm currently trying to watch and review 31 horror movies I haven't seen before, and give you the highlights. If you want to see movies 1 to 16, they're in previous videos, so you can go and check them out. But without further ado, let's get straight to the movies. So we're on to movie number 17. 2019's Daniel Isn't Real, which surprisingly enough isn't about me having an existential crisis. Nope, it's about a young boy called Luke. He's passing by the crime scene of a mass shooting, and suddenly he realizes he's got a new imaginary friend, Daniel. The two of them get on like a house on fire.
He was my best friend.
But things take a turn for the sinister pretty quickly. Like when Daniel tells Luke to poison his mum. The mother's clearly not happy with this behaviour. She forces Luke to get rid of Daniel. So Luke yells at Daniel until he goes into a doll's house. Then fast forward to the future. Luke is at college. For some reason his therapist tells him to get Daniel out of the doll's house.
It's kind of a strange notion, but maybe you should try to connect with that part of yourself again.
And the pair are reunited.
You need to break out and live.
And what starts with good dating advice and practical jokes,
I bet you can get a phone number from any girl at this party.
once again becomes a bit sinister. There's a horrific scene with a tentacle face melt. And it becomes a surreal psychological body swap horror. Miles Robbins, who plays Luke, gives an absolutely incredible performance in this film.
He's lonely.
And it also stars Patrick Schwarzenegger, that's right, Arnie's son, as the aforementioned Daniel. It's kind of like a mental health hellraiser. And it's got a kick-ass synthy score. I mean, all in all, it's an interesting psychological cosmic horror.
I imagined you. I can make you go away.
Which is only let down in its third act by its hipster art student-esque aesthetics. The demon realm kind of looks like a hipster basement club. That's a lot of neon, and it kind of loses its insidious fear when it shows too much of the demons. But it's still a good flick and worth a watch. What did I learn from this movie? I learned that a person can really open up on that therapy couch. I also learned that Daniels can be bad influences. Nah, I knew that already. Daniel isn't real. Yes, he is. 3 out of 5 hipster hellscapes. Which brings us on to movie number 18. 2020's Uncle Peckerhead. Now, this is a movie produced by a company called Subtle T-Rex, which frankly is an awesome name for a company. Good job, Subtle T-Rex. And apparently it's based on a true story.
Shut up.
No way.
It's an offbeat horror comedy about a punk band who accidentally employ a roadie who turns into a demon at midnight. And my first impressions were that it was pretty cheap and not much to look at, but it won me over after the first 20 minutes.
Sorry, I didn't get your name.
My name's Peckerhead.
That is not your name.
I started to think it was quite endearing, started appreciating the characters. Particularly Max, who I found adorable.
It's tour time.
Despite the fact that he smiles when he has an erection. And Victory dances on his bed like an Egypt.
No.
And Peckerhead himself, or Peck as he likes to be called, is quite an endearing soul as well. And there's lots of hilarious scenes in this film.
Put your head down so we can get the top of your dome.
There's a very funny and realistic scene with a sound engineer. I didn't tell you to stop. Stop. Been there. There's a very amusing and vocal sex scene, which results in someone invoicing someone for the morning after pill. Nice.
Holy shit.
And of course there's that scene with what happened to the metalheads in the parking lot.
You're cruising or fucking bruising.
The band's music's actually pretty fucking good too. What did I learn from this movie? I learned that James Taylor is actually a perfect name for a punk band. And I also learned that some people taste like dog shit and some people taste like watermelon sherbet.
Cool.
That's Uncle Peckerhead. Very rough around the edges, but sure you wouldn't want punk any other way. 3 out of 5 distortion pedals. Which brings us on to movie number 19. I mean, this shit with my hands is ridiculous, but I'm locked into it now, aren't I? Fuck it. 2018's Suspiria. So this is a reimagining of the 1977 Dario Argento classic. And gone are the kaleidoscope of colours of the Argento original, and also that creeping sense of dread. And in their place is a more drab and realistic Berlin. It's essentially a story about an American girl who goes to a prestigious dance school in Berlin that's run by witches.
I can feel her.
But this version has a lot more going on in it as well.
There's more in that building than what you can see, Doctor.
And there's lots of subtext about feminism and the war.
She wanted to live her beliefs. Who doesn't admire that?
and Berlin politics.
If she wants to live in a cellar filling bottles with petrol, that's her choice.
It's very slow moving, which I know puts off some people, but it is so ridiculously beautifully shot. And very moving too. There's a whole new subplot about a doctor who lost his wife, Anka, during the war.
You're living with dangerous people.
Which at the start I was like, what the fuck's this about? But it actually ended up being my favourite thing about the film. Not to mention the genius casting of Jessica Harper, who played Susie in the original. The rest of the cast, for the most part, are great as well.
Pack your things and get the fuck out from this box of rabies!
Sometimes I have problems with Tilda Swinton. She can often play over-the-top caricatures.
This is so disappointing.
Like a female Johnny Depp.
Right.
But her performance in this film is Madame Blanc.
No. It's okay. Let's face this.
Good work, Tilda. Unfortunately, she shows up at the end playing another character, the head witch, Helena Marcos. And it's a hammy, terrible caricature. Not to mention that the character looks ridiculous. Like if Elton John and Ozzy Osbourne had had a tumorous love child. In fact, the entire Helena Marcos Black Sabbath scene is very problematic. A lot of red filters, shaky cam, and bad CGI. It's like a 1-star piece of filmmaking right near the end of a 5-star movie, which is very frustrating. But other than that, it's a masterpiece. With some of the best filmmaking I've seen in years. There's an incredible scene where the character of Olga is danced to death. And there's lots of visually stunning dream sequences.
Is it true?
Of blood and worms and hooks and horses. And the music.
It's beautiful.
I think the score from the original Suspiria is my favourite horror movie score. How do you go about replacing that? By getting one of my favourite musicians to do it? Fuck yes. They get Tom York of Radiohead fame. And he knocks it out the park. You know, I once had a dream that Tom York appeared at my bedroom window, just dancing erratically in pure silence. It was very unnerving. What did I learn from this movie? I learned that one should not dance on a compound fracture. And I also learned that I think I'm a little bit afraid of Tom York. Suspiria. 4 out of 5 plies. Which brings us on to movie number 20. Oh, it just looks like I'm groping someone. So I originally watched a movie from 1986 called The Wraith, in which a young Charlie Sheen played a friendly ghost like Casper. He was taking revenge on the gang that killed him by challenging them all to drag races. It was an enjoyable watch, but not a horror movie. More of a romantic teen fantasy. So I moved swiftly on to another movie from 1986, Sorority House Massacre. I mean, this movie does exactly what it says on the tin. A guy escapes from a lunatic asylum, comes back to his family home. It's now a sorority house. There's a massacre. It's just a cheap and camp 80s slasher. Filled with lots of dream sequences. With little girls in bad ADR.
Where are you going?
Creepy doll family sitting at a table. The main character, Beth, is clearly repressing some trauma.
Something really awful must be going on inside my head.
She just has a lot of visions of knives stabbing through things. Through a mirror. Through a desk. Through the top of some bunk beds. A lot of knifing. But actually when the killing starts, there's a grim realism to it.
Hey, what are you doing there?
This guy's not big on stalking for suspense. He's straight in there with a knife.
Hey, who are you? What's the plan here, buddy? You gotta get a reason.
It's just a fair few brutal, no-nonsense stabbings. However, that's where any sense of gritty realism ends, because most of the characters end up behaving like idiots. There's a guy called Craig who's holding a ladder.
Hey, come on.
They're trying to make it escape. He knows the killer was there a second ago.
Hurry.
He doesn't even look over his shoulder. Dozy cunt. And there's a very funny scene where the killer's trying to climb in through the window when they're just slapping his hand pathetically in the hopes he'll let go. And when the character of Linda gets that shovel, what the fuck are you doing with that, love? Nonsense. Obviously there are many films like this film, so you don't need to go out of your way to see it, but it's cheap and cheerful. Cheap enough that the boom mic likes to enter the shot every now and again, and it does have a hilarious montage scene where they're trying on the clothes of their friend Cindy.
Try on Cindy's clothes.
Yeah!
It's just bad fashion, boobs, and this fucking music. What did I learn from this movie? I learned that killing kittens for science projects is frowned upon.
It's cruel. That's really horrible, Andy.
And I also learned that the knife is a phallic symbol. Sorority House Massacre. 2 out of 5 hunting knives. Which brings us on to movie number 21. 2016's I Am Not a Serial Killer. This is actually an Irish-made film set in America, based on a book. It's about a young man called John Wayne Cleaver, who's worried that he's a sociopath and that he might become a serial killer. I mean, with that name, your parents didn't really give you a chance, did they?
You have a lot of predictors for serial killer behavior.
Anyway, he works at a funeral parlor. He enjoys preparing the bodies, seeing how stuff works. But when more bodies start coming in, he realizes there's an actual serial killer in town.
You guys worried about going out of business? It's 2 bodies in a week. It's money in the bank.
Or so he thinks. It's actually some sort of organ-eating oil demon, played by Christopher Lloyd. Marty! Organs! I mean, it's always nice to see Christopher, and he's pretty great in this. Flirting between being an adorable older gentleman, trying to figure out how to send a photo of him blowing a kiss to his wife on his new smartphone.
So it's that button, and then
being some sort of sinister demon that likes to kill people while ice fishing and eat their lungs. Anyway, it's a decent film. At times it feels like a slower paced Fright Night, what with the whole neighbour being a monster thing. And at times it's a bit too slow maybe, but all in all it's an interesting, if not a little odd movie.
That's for sure.
What did I learn from this movie? I learned that the best way to deal with a bully is to slowly explain that you're imagining cutting him open while he's talking to you.
a really great guy.
You're a freak.
And I also learned that being called normal can be a bit of an insult.
I'm interested in how many times you felt it was necessary to say the word normal.
And that's I Am Not a Serial Killer. 3 out of 5 oily fingers. And now we're moving on to movie number 22. 2019's Darlin. Now this movie is actually a sequel to 2011's The Woman, which has been written and directed by the woman herself, Pollyanna McIntosh. It's the story of a feral child who ends up in a Catholic hospital and then is brought to a Catholic boarding school.
So, you see, Doctor, she will have a mother of sorts, as well as a father.
Where they want her to be saved by God, mostly for some good PR and to keep the school open.
That she may be a testament to your kindness.
Lauren Canny, who's actually an Irish actress, plays the feral Darlin.
A true innocent. Completely feral.
And she gives a great performance. I was captivated any time she was on screen,
The devil inside me.
wondering how she was going to react.
How will God get it out?
I found myself caring about her character a lot. I mean, this movie lacks the gut-churning, abusive awfulness of the first film, and that's a good movie, but it's not an easy watch. But this is a very interesting follow-up in its own right.
Is God still there?
Like with the first film, we find ourselves empathizing more with the feral characters,
It's incredible.
rather than those that are supposedly upstanding members of society.
Why won't she turn around?
I mean, I could certainly relate to Darlin in the scene where she breaks out of her Bible studies class, climbs through the window and starts hoofing it to the trees. A thing I've done many times in my head. I mean, I guess it's a film that wears its politics on its sleeve, with its plotline about a paedophile douchebag bishop.
It was that experience that brought her to God.
And the writing's a bit trite at the end, feels rushed, and it lacks the emotional weight that it should carry, but it's still an interesting and captivating film for the most part. I'm not sure I buy the woman wearing aviators though. But at least she looks cool. What did I learn from this movie? I learned that some people hate hospital clowns even more than I do, and that feral people really hate car rides. And that's Darlin. Good work, Pollyanna McIntosh. 3 out of 5 feral snarls. Which brings us on to movie number 23. 2019's Sea Fever. Not to be confused with the Keeping Up Appearances special of the same name. This is a film about a young scientist who doesn't like birthday parties, who then decides to do some research on a trawler off the west coast of Ireland. Yes, this is our 3rd movie in a row with an Irish link. The director is Irish, most of the cast are not. An English woman, a Dutch woman and a Scotsman walk onto a movie set, and only one of them can do a convincing Irish accent. I mean, Dougray Scott's hybrid accent is even harder to understand than a normal Cork accent.
Pretty much all we do is jump around the place. Oh, no, I know I'm a horse, no, I know I'm a horse, no, don't be like that with me, no, okay?
There were many lines in this film that I just didn't understand. And I'm Irish. But despite this, it's a pretty good movie. It's kind of like The Perfect Storm meets The Thing via the path of a giant jellyfish.
Something's wrong.
It latches onto the boat with trippy luminescent tendrils. It actually looks fucking beautiful and intimidating. And they soon find out that this unknown entity has infected the water supply with some sort of parasite.
That's inside the boat.
Which leads to paranoia, sudden deaths, and ice explosions. It's actually a really well-made film. The underwater shots are beautiful. The being itself is kind of awesome. I felt in fear and awe of it. And it's very exciting and contains some interesting ethics about infectious diseases.
We need to quarantine ourselves.
And wildlife preservation. I can't not mark it down for the accents, but it's still getting the Hidden Gem of the Week award. Hidden Gem of the Week. Good work, Ireland and Scotland and Sweden and all of the rest of the countries that made this film happen. Apart from you, Dougray Scott. Actually, that's really mean. His acting's actually really good. It's just his accent is fucking atrocious. I'm sorry, Dougray. He just seems like a genuinely nice guy that hasn't really done anything wrong to me. Just like you, Brendan Quinn. Fuck away back off to the set of Vikings Valhalla. It's not about you right now. Fuck you, Brendan Quinn. What did I learn from this movie? I learned that redheads are apparently bad luck, especially if you're a boy. I'm not gingerist. It's just a joke. And I also learned that if an unknown entity attaches itself to your boat, don't poke it in its gooey orifice.
What is that?
Don't poke it.
What is that?
Stop doing that.
What is that?
Don't pick at it.
What is that?
And that's Sea Fever. 3 out of 5 luminescent tendrils. Which brings us on to the final movie of this week of Dantober. It's movie number 24. 2016's The Transfiguration. Now, this movie is about a young man who is obsessed with vampire lore. He's so obsessed with vampire lore that he actually goes out and hunts someone once a month to feed on them. He's Milo, the self-proclaimed awkward teen urban vampire.
I think it starts with drinking blood.
But then he meets another troubled teen called Sophie.
Wow, you're really into
Vampires.
I was gonna say scary movies.
And strikes up a relationship with her. Tries to teach her all about vampire shit.
So what are vampires like?
She's just into Twilight. It's actually kind of more of a dark indie romantic drama than it is a horror movie.
You like him?
Yeah.
But it's still bloody good. I think I related to the character of Milo because he behaves on dates in the same way that I do, talking about my past trauma way too soon and slagging off popular culture like Twilight and True Blood.
Why are you avoiding me?
I can't really give too much away with this one. It's a slow and subtle movie. It's darkly romantic. It's darkly sweet. Lloyd Kaufman turns up as a hobo, and it has a beautiful ending. If I had to fault this movie, I would say that it doesn't really feel like a horror movie, despite certain disturbing and bloody scenes. But then in all honesty, most vampire movies don't. It's just a very well-made indie vampire movie, and it's definitely worth a watch. What did I learn from this movie? I learned that sometimes the sucking noise you hear from a bathroom stall isn't always what you think. And that's The Transfiguration. 4 out of 5 bloodlettings. And that's the rundown of movies 17 to 24 of Dantober 2020. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, then please like, share, subscribe, click on the Otter. If you have any recommendations of what I should watch in the last week of Dantober, then fire them at me. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay sane, and imagine being stung by a giant jellyfish. You'd need a lot of people to pee on you.
Finn.